Okay.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Daily Herald here on Badlands Media. I am your host, John Herold. Hope you guys had a great weekend. It is a Monday, and Monday's gonna Monday, but lots of stuff to go through. A lot of Trump clips. Trump's meeting with Bukele from El Salvador right now, and there's some good content coming out of that meeting. Hopefully, you guys were watching that over on Badlands Live this morning. Man, just what a weird weekend. But we're going to get right to it. Let's get a quick word from our sponsors, and I'll start cracking away. I'm going to try to go through this as quickly as I can, even quicker than normal, if possible, because I have a pretty important couple phone calls I got to make this afternoon. I'm actually expecting a phone call, and I think they're going to try calling right around by the time the show normally ends. So I want to be ready for it. So let's start off with Bitcoin River. River announces Bitcoin interest on cash. Now, US dollars in your River account will earn a high yield interest rate that can be paid in Bitcoin. With the price of groceries, mortgage, and tuition on a steep rise, people are now looking at a retirement age of 80 instead of 60. And it's all because dollars are losing value at a record pace. The challenge is finding a way to hold onto your dollar while still getting ahead. And that's where River Bitcoin comes in. River Bitcoin's interest on cash protects your dollars with FDIC insurance while offering you the option to reap the potential gains in Bitcoin. Over the past 2 years, you would have earned 2x the rate of most high-yield savings accounts and 16x the rate of the national average savings account with Bitcoin interest on cash. Get started at badlandsmedia.tv/river. Move your cash to River today and start earning a real interest rate with Bitcoin. And if you don't yet, you can just open a regular account and buy Bitcoin on River as well for as little as like $10. I would start throwing $10 in there, like monthly if you can. It's only going to go up, guys. I mean, it will roller coaster like all things. But one more sponsor real quick, Safe Streets. Now's the perfect time to secure your home and your loved ones. Get a free ADT smart home security system valued at $1,200 from ADT authorized provider Safe Streets. Plus, get a Google Nest doorbell camera at no cost and a $200 Visa gift card from Safe Streets, the most trusted name in home security with more than 106,000 4.9 star Trust Pilot reviews. Go to getsafestreets.com/badlands or call 925-529-6541. That's 925-529-6541 to speak to a representative today, and a $99 customer installation charge and purchase of new monitoring service required for their termination fee to apply. All right, how are you guys doing this weekend? Anything crazy happen, chat? Let me know if I'm missing anything. The silliest story from the past, like whatever it's been, 72 hours since my last show, has got to be this one. Let me share my screen. Oh, shoot. You know what? I forgot. I was going to plug our GART real quick, too. We might even be releasing Deadwood tickets to the public today. I don't know. Mrs. Bright mentioned it, and I haven't decided, but we have Plymouth coming up May 1st through the 4th. In-person tickets are available. Single-day tickets are available. I'd encourage you guys to come if you can. If you can't, then you got to get your virtual ticket because it's almost as good as the real thing. You get access to an exclusive live chat, which most people say is their favorite part. You'll get access to behind-the-scenes footage, which is awesome. And obviously the panels we're going to be doing. You can actually participate by asking questions. And we're doing exclusive live streams. We did one last Thursday. We're going to be doing another one, I believe, this Thursday at the same time. And we'll be doing multiple as we get closer to the event. So get your tickets if you haven't yet, badlandsmedia.tv/events. All right, let's get to this. Did you guys see Katy Perry and a bunch of other women got sent to space? Unfortunately, they came back down to Earth, but this is crazy. You guys got to watch this video.
Liftoff. New Shepard has cleared the tower.
This looks fake as hell, by the way.
Flight. climbing.
It is quite ironic that 6 women went to space in a rocket ship shaped like a penis. Is that considered swearing? I don't think so. Maybe inappropriate, but yeah, they did come back down. This maybe looked a little more real, but
crew capsule, those are like the guide parachutes. There go the drogue parachutes.
Just free falling right there until those drogues came out.
And then next will be the main parachutes that get pulled out.
Hear that screaming inside the capsule?
And all 3 air cushion that will kick up the dust. It's a very soft landing despite the sporty perception. There it is.
it doesn't look that soft. So stupid, this whole thing. Quite the publicity stunt. Great day for feminism, I guess, maybe. I thought this was hilarious, too. Great idea. Anyway, yeah, so Katy Perry went to space. They did successfully bring her back, and is what it is. Well, I'm going to get into a couple tariff stories first, and some of Trump's comments from his meeting with Bukele, and then just got a bunch of random stories throughout here. A lot of them having to do with Trump's meeting with Bukele, actually. I mean, it's very on the nose. A lot of decent questions from reporters, and he slammed Caitlin Collins a few times. There was no update on the Doge website, by the way, and also the only presidential action on the website was the further sealing of the border, getting more federal land from the Roosevelt reservation to build military or build the wall on military installations. So we talked about this on Saturday's Power Hour. If you want a detailed breakdown, I'd go to like the second half or something of the show. I'm not going to get into it on this show. But okay, so Trump's comment talking about the unfair trade balance. I'm going to read this whole thing and then got a couple other stories to go through. Nobody is getting off the hook for the unfair trade balances and non-monetary tariff barriers that other countries have used against us, especially not China, which by far treats us the worst. There was no tariff exception announced on Friday. These products are subject to the existing 20% fentanyl tariffs, and they are just moving to a different tariff bucket. The fake news knows this, but refuses to report it. We are taking a look at semiconductors and whole electronics supply chain in the upcoming national security tariff investigations. By the way, I love this idea. They're treating everything like national security now, including our trade, which the fact it wasn't done that way before is almost nonsense when you think about it. It's common sense. But again, Trump is he's a businessman. He's great at making deals, and he is a thinker, a common sense thinker. What has been exposed is that we need to make products in the United States and that we will not be held hostage by other countries, especially hostile trading nations like China, which will do everything within its power to disrespect the American people. We also cannot let them continue to abuse us on trade like they have for decades. Those days are over. The golden age of America, which includes the upcoming tax and regulation cuts, a substantial amount of which was just approved by the House and Senate, will mean more and better paying jobs, making products in our nation, and treating other countries, in particular China, the same way they have treated us. The bottom line is that our country will be bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. We will make America great again. The interesting thing about China, too, is they've kind of changed their rhetoric a little bit. I don't have a story on this, but initially it was, we're just going to do the tit for tat thing, back and forth. But now they're like, we are willing to have some kind of discussions while they're still doing the trade war stuff. But again, all this stuff makes sense. You have the crazy liberals out there freaking out like, oh my gosh, China stopped importing beef. Like, who cares? Do we need to export beef to China and give them a discount while importing beef and paying more when we make plenty of beef here? Like, this is for all products, not just beef, but beef's a good example. Like, our import and export number of beef is like 4.1 billion pounds for both of them. We could just stop exporting and importing and keep it all here, and we'd feel no different. We'd see no difference. But the media is freaking out about the markets and the tariff stuff. They're trying to create the volatility. It is what it is. Let's go through. Okay, first the introduction of Bukele.
I have a great relationship with this man. I have the best relationship with him. We've known each other I've known him since he was a very young man, as I said, very, very young. And I was impressed. I said, look at this guy. In fact, you sort of look like a teenager. You still you look like a teenager. I said, what kind of a country is this?
Mr. President.
He grew up well in the last 5 years.
There's one, and then this is what he had to do. He mentioned his cognitive exam, which is always hilarious.
And by the way, I took my cognitive exam as part of my physical exam, and I got the highest mark. And one of the doctors said, sir, I've never seen anybody get that that was the highest mark. I hope you're happy with that. Although they haven't been bugging me too much to take a cognitive, but I did do my physical and it was released. I hope you're all happy with it. I noticed there's no question, so probably you are. But the cognitive, they said to me, sir, would you like to take a cognitive test? I said, did Biden take one? No. Did anybody take one? No, not too many people took them. I said, what about Obama? Did he take one? No, he didn't take one either. I said, let me be the only one to take one. But I've actually taken them 3 times already. I like taking them because they're not too tough for me to take. But we had a great physical exam, so I know you're going to ask that. And the doctors who are total professionals, Walter Reed Medical Center, they're great people. And I visited.
Anytime Trump talks about his physicals, it always reminds me of that one speech he gave. I think it was at like an RNC or something. And he was talking about his physical that he got from, was it John Kennedy or something? Whoever the doctor's name was John. And the reason I know that is because for a while there, I clipped out part of what he said and put it in my Devolution Power Hour intro. And it was like, where's John? Not John. He's a heck of a guy, whatever. But in the speech, he was like, I just got done with my physical exam. And this guy said I'm in the best shape of any president. And believe me, he's seen every inch of me or something like that. And it's just the funniest comment. He's so funny. But yeah, he took his cognitive test and got the highest mark possible. So good for him. Okay, let's get into some of the actual meat of this stuff, talking about illegal immigration. There is some interesting comments and an interesting story about the immigrant that's in El Salvador that the judge or the Supreme Court kind of told him he has to facilitate the return of. We're going to talk about that after this.
How many illegal criminals are you planning on exporting to El Salvador? And President Bukele, how many are you willing to take from the U.S.?
As many as possible. And I just asked the president, it's this massive complex that he built, jail complex. I said, can you build some more of them, please? As many as we can get out of our country that were allowed in here by incompetent Joe Biden through open borders. Open borders. You probably hear open borders and you can't even understand it because nobody can understand. Nobody smart or with common sense can understand it. So we have millions of people that should not be in this country that are dangerous, not just people, because we have people, but we have millions of people that are murderers, drug dealers. They've been allowed to come into our country by other countries that were very smart.
How many illegal criminals are you planning on exporting?
It's on the wrong screen. So there's that, and there's one more clip here, and then I'll read the story about that other guy.
Well, I'm supposedly not suggesting that I smuggle a terrorist into the United States, right? How can I smuggle? How can I return him to the United States? Like, I smuggle him into the United States, or what do I do? Of course, I'm not going to do it. It's like, I mean, the question is preposterous. How can I smuggle a terrorist into the United States? I don't have the power to return him to the.
They're talking about that Maryland guy who got deported, and there's this legal battle going back and forth. The Supreme Court, at one point last week, ordered the Trump administration to facilitate his return from El Salvador. But he's a terrorist guy. He's MS-13. And there's a story this morning about how Trump and his administration are arguing back to the court about this. The Trump administration insisted Sunday that it has no legal obligation to arrange for the return of a Maryland man illegally deported from the United States, arguing that a Supreme Court ruling last week only requires officials to admit him into the country if he makes it back from a high-security prison in El Salvador. Justice Department lawyers told a federal judge that they don't interpret the Supreme Court's Thursday ruling that the administration facilitate Kilmar Abrego Garcia's release as obligating the administration to do anything more than just adjust his immigration status to admit him if El Salvador's government chooses to release him. With El Salvador's president, Nayib Bukele, set to meet President Donald Trump Monday, DOJ attorneys argued the courts have no power to require the administration to engage with the Salvadoran government to reach a diplomatic solution. They contend such a potential order would amount to a violation of the separation of powers and an intrusion into what they allege is unfettered presidential power to conduct foreign relations. And they're right about this, guys. All of those requested orders involve interactions with a foreign sovereign and potential violations of that sovereignty. Justice Department attorneys wrote in a 7-page submission to the U.S. District Judge Paula Zenas. A federal court cannot compel the executive branch to engage in any mandated act of diplomacy or incursion upon the sovereignty of another nation. So this is, I mean, it's a great legal argument. They're right. And they're going to continue to freak out about this. I don't disagree, or I do disagree with the court's ruling that he was deported illegally. If he's not a legal citizen of the United States, then get him out of here. And especially if he has ties to MS-13, absolutely. Send him to El Salvador. They agreed to take him. He's an El Salvadoran citizen in the first place, I'm pretty sure. But now he's Bukele's property, essentially. He's under his jurisdiction, and we can't force Bukele to send him back. And that's what Bukele was saying. He's like, what am I going to do, smuggle him back into the country? And that's what Trump's DOJ is saying. We can't do that. And you can't tell us to do that because you can't tell us how to conduct foreign relations. So interesting. Looking forward to watching everybody freak out about it. And it'll be interesting to see what the Supreme Court does or how they respond to that argument, because it's the correct one. Are they going to say no, like you have to do what we say, you have to conduct your foreign relations with this other country in a certain manner because we said so? They can't do that. Even if they try, Trump will just ignore it again. But having to do with the tariffs and imports and whatnot, over the weekend, or maybe it was even last Friday, I don't remember, but China has announced that they're going to put export controls on heavy rare earth materials that are vital for motors and magnets as part of this trade war with the United States. Oh man, hold on, I got to turn off the baby monitor. All right. This is a potent control point and more effective than the U.S. tariff scheme, says a leading industry executive. However, this is also an opportunity for European companies such as Solvay that are not subject to the export controls to supply into the U.S. When China announced export controls on heavy rare earths and NdFeB magnets, they were sending a signal to the U.S. government banning these metals and magnets are a hammer on the U.S. economy, which is aiming to mine and process these materials in the U.S. So great. Let's we'll stop shipping them from you. We'll build them ourselves. We'll mine them ourselves, and we'll be just fine. Although right now they do a bulk of this mining over there, but we can ramp it up. We're going to be forced to. So I don't see an issue with this. The tariff stuff, the trade stuff, it's going to work itself out the way Trump intends it to. The freak out is temporary. Trump is going to get what he's asking for with all this stuff. But he did put in a partial exemption for smartphones, laptops, and other things, electronics, and it's only temporary, and it's while they do some sort of review to all of the tariffs. But they're putting a pause specifically on these ones, which is a good one. The Ape Theory 21, baby monitor equals real news by real people. Yeah, I forgot to turn it off. Actually, it's been on for like months straight, and I don't know. That's the first time it actually like disconnected, so I don't know. Don't know how that happened. Here's some of Trump's comments on tariffs.
Yesterday, you mentioned short-lived product exemptions. Which specific products are you considering, and how long is short-lived? Weeks, months?
I'm looking at something to help some of the car companies where they're switching to parts that were made in Canada, Mexico, and other places, and they need a little bit of time because they're going to make them here, but they need a little bit of time. So I'm talking about things like that.
What about any Apple products, other cell phones?
Look, I'm a very flexible person. I don't change my mind, but I'm flexible. And you have to be. You just can't have a wall and you'll only go. No, sometimes you have to go around it, under it, or above it. There'll be maybe things coming up. I speak to Tim Cook. I helped Tim Cook recently, and that whole business. I don't want to hurt anybody, but the end result is we're going to get to the position of greatness for our country. We're the greatest economic power in the world if we're smart. If we're not smart, we're going to hurt our country very badly.
He's not wrong. He is not wrong. I liked how he said that, though. I'm flexible. I don't change my mind, but I'm flexible, and I like that. I like to kind of think of myself the same way, although some people would probably disagree with that. More on tariffs here. Again, these are all from the Bukele meeting today. Even though he was there, this foreign leader who's completely transformed his country, he purchased Bitcoin, and he got rid of all criminal activity, all the gangs, rounded them all up, used the military to do so. They went from one of the most dangerous countries in the world to the safest in the Western Hemisphere almost overnight. I mean, it took a couple days, maybe a week, but it was a very rapid change. Completely transformed the country. And they're sitting here asking Trump about tariffs. Insanity.
We're doing it because we want to make our own drugs. We're doing it because we want to make our own steel and aluminum, lumber, other things. And they're all coming in. We have record numbers, $7 trillion. Since I announced, like a month and a half ago, since I came in, we have over $7 trillion being invested in the country. We didn't have $1 trillion. We didn't have $500 billion for some of these guys. They didn't know what the hell they were doing. So we have the largest investment that we've ever heard of, and we're only 2 months in. And that'll continue at levels that you've never seen before.
Never seen it before. We do have a lot of investments in the country. There's just so much going on, so many pieces to the economic puzzle. It's confusing. But here's, I think, J.D. Vance with some commentary. So I know everybody's clamoring for J.D. Vance commentary.
For 40 years, we have lost manufacturing capacity. Workers have seen their wages stagnate. And some of the most critical things that we need, from the pharmaceuticals, the drugs that we give to our children, the antibiotics that we give to our kids, to the weapons that we actually need to fight a war, if God forbid we had to fight a war, we don't make enough of that stuff. And so President Trump ran explicitly on changing that. Yes, as the president mentioned, it caused a little bit of disruption in the market, but I actually think over the long term, workers are going to benefit, stocks are going to go up, American businesses are going to benefit as we reinvest and reindustrialize our country. For 40 years, we have lost.
So I'm trying to find the Caitlin Collins clip. Well, we have this. He's talking about CNN.
Do you have any questions, please?
President Trump?
No, let's not start
Mr.
with
President.
CNN, because they're just so
Mr. President.
wrong. Do you have any questions, please?
President Trump?
There's that, and then there's this.
On tariffs?
No, not you. Not question.
I just get so annoyed at Caitlin Collins. It's so funny. All right. I think that's all the economic stuff. So we'll get into a couple other things. So first of all, the U.S.-Iran nuclear talks are going to continue this week in Rome instead of Oman. So that's a good news. At some point, we'd like to see, the denuclearization. And there's a few interesting stories on this. So first, let's listen to what Trump says, and then I want to read a little bit of an article from the mainstream media, just how they're presenting this, because they're basically saying, you'll see. Let's start with this.
Iran wants to deal with us, but they don't know how. They really don't know how. We had a meeting with them on Saturday. We have another meeting scheduled next Saturday. I said, that's a long time. That's a long time. So I think they might be tapping us along. But Iran has to get rid of the concept of a nuclear weapon. They cannot have a nuclear weapon. He can't have a nuclear weapon. Nobody can have. We can't have anybody having nuclear weapons. We can't have nuclear weapons. And I think they're tapping us along because we're so used to dealing with stupid people in this country. And I had Iran perfect. You had no attacks. You would have never had October 7th in Israel, the attack by Hamas, because Iran was broke. They were stone cold broke when I was president. And I don't want to do it. I want them to be a rich, great nation. The only thing is, one thing, simple. It's really simple. They can't have a nuclear weapon. And they got to go fast because they're fairly close to having one. And they're not going to have one. And if we have to do something very harsh, we'll do it. And I'm not doing it for us. I'm doing it for the world. And these are radicalized people, and they cannot have a nuclear weapon.
Okay, so nothing he said there was wrong or inaccurate. They can't have a nuclear weapon. I got a story to show you about this, but first, there's a comment in the chat, and I don't even know who said it first. Okay, yeah, it's a Rumble rant actually. So any updates on when Badlands can get credit for Rumble premium subscriptions? I've been holding off, but I can't take many more tinnitus and drink warm water to lose weight. Low budget ads. Okay, so the full story here of how that discussion with Rumble has been going on. There's a hierarchy at Rumble, right? Like CEO and their sales guys and all these things. And I talked to like all of them, but the ones I've been talking to about this, the Rumble Premium has been the sales team. And it started, months ago. And like 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, even, we finally got like the go ahead, like, okay, we're good. We're going to create it. We figured out, whatever they needed from us to make it work. They say it's a huge process or something. And so I'll take their word for it. But I assumed it was coming like that day. I was like, hey man, get us our premium code. And we just haven't gotten it yet. I don't know when it's coming. We've been promised it's coming. I don't know when it's coming. But on that note, I do have a call set up with Chris, the CEO, this week. Or I guess it's not set up yet. We've been texting like, hey, let's hop on a call this week. So I'm going to be on the phone with him at some point this week, and I'll figure that out. So hopefully, Anarchy will have good news on that soon. So you don't have to suffer through those ads too much longer. But also, if you just want to bite the bullet and do it, I totally respect that, and you'll still be supporting Rumble, who supports us. But I do appreciate you waiting as well. Okay, so this story from Politico from this morning, or I guess it wasn't this morning, it was like 3 days ago, Friday. Trump may be triggering the fastest nuclear weapons race since the Cold War. This is how they're spinning things. Trump is like preventing Iran from getting a nuke. Trump's goal, his whole life has been to denuclearize the world. And they even say that in here. Donald Trump has been obsessed with preventing a nuclear holocaust since he was bumptious boy builder back in the 1980s. Back then, Trump reportedly proposed with typical grandiosity that if President Ronald Reagan appointed him, whatever this word is, plenipotentiary ambassador, he would end the Cold War within an hour. And I've highlighted an article from 1987 where Trump talks about his ultimate plan, his ultimate goal is to denuke the world. Well, in this article, they're trying to spin it as because of all the economic stuff and the way Trump is treating our forever allies from after World War, that all these countries are scared now. They're scared they can't take care of themselves, and so they feel like they need to get nukes. Trump's not going to let that happen either. You think he's going to let a South Korea or Japan or whatever countries they mentioned in here, Germany, South Korea, Japan, Saudi Arabia, you think he's going to let them get nukes? No. These people are so stupid, but they're looking for any excuse they can to not only gaslight the American people in their audience, but also to create a level of fear. Because not only are the stocks crashing, but everybody's going to have nukes now because of Trump. So, Kurt K23, BB did a great job of explaining how the media drives the narrative with shit like this on the narrative yesterday. Apologies for swearing. That was a comment, not my words. Yeah, I haven't watched that episode yet. I want to because Oak was on there, and he's a great man, great supporter of ours. He's always comes to our Garts. I've talked to him privately multiple times as well, and you can't find a better guy, smarter guy, and I can only imagine how good of a guest he was. So I would encourage you, and I'm being honest here because I normally don't encourage people to watch Burning Bright show, but you guys should watch this one at least. So I can guarantee you it was a good one. Anyway, we'll keep going here. Trump had this Truth Social post this morning. Thought it was interesting. The best definition of intelligence is the ability to predict the future. I love this from Trump, especially because of who he is and how he's able to dictate pretty much everything on every level, from actual to narrative, doesn't matter. He almost dictates the future, or he knows what the outcome is, and it's already been gamed out or even executed. I don't even know the full details, right? There's speculation about the level of control all the time. But whatever it is, he's able to manufacture the future that he predicted previously. I would define that as the best definition of intelligence, is the ability to create the future that you've predicted, which is pretty awesome. Yeah, and there's a link in here. Spetzel just put it up to the narrative show last night. Make sure you guys check that out. But there's a lot of content on the network today, so don't skip any of that for Burning Bright. You can do it for Oak, but not for Burning Bright. We got this. The war between Russia and Ukraine is Biden's war, not mine. I just got here, and for 4 years during my term, had no problem in preventing it from happening. President Putin and everyone else respected your president. I had nothing to do with this war, but am working diligently to get the death and destruction to stop. If the 2020 presidential election was not rigged, and it was in so many ways, the horrible war would never have happened. President Zelensky and crooked Joe Biden did an absolutely horrible job in allowing this travesty to begin. There were so many ways of preventing it from ever starting, but that is in the past. Now we've got to get it to stop, and fast. So sad. These negotiations are taking a long time, like longer than I expected them to take, and it's kind of, I mean, it's worth discussing, asking questions about. He even kind of promised on the campaign trail, like, I'll have that thing done before I even get in office, or maybe he was talking about the Gaza stuff. I don't know, whichever war, but he had that one kind of at a ceasefire. That's been no longer a ceasefire. But this one, we know he's been talking about for a long time that it never should have happened, and he'll end it as soon as he's in his office. We're not there yet. And we haven't really seen much movement on it either. And that's what's kind of crazy. We even had this, there was a story over the weekend that there's some massacre in Ukraine, the Palm Sunday massacre, they're calling it. And here's what Trump said when he was asked about it.
So do you have a reaction to Russia's Palm Sunday attack?
I think it was terrible, and I was told they made a mistake, but I think it's a horrible thing. I think the whole war is a horrible thing. I think the war is, for that war to have started, is an abuse of power. This country would have never allowed that war to have started if I were president. That war is a shame. Millions of people are dead that should be alive. Cities are being destroyed all over Ukraine. The whole culture is gone. Or very certainly very severely hurt. You know, the chapels, the churches, the spirals, all of the things that they had in Ukraine were among the most beautiful anywhere in the world, and most of them been knocked down and blown up into a million pieces. But most importantly, you have millions of people dead that shouldn't be dead.
The Ukraine-Russia war is a war on spirals, guys. All knocked down, all destroyed. But yeah, I thought it was interesting. He said that they heard it was a mistake. Like, how do you mistake blowing up a bunch of people if it's even true it happened, right? We have really no way of knowing. It's just what the media tells us happened. And I'm not saying that it's fake. I'm just saying we don't know the truth or the details. Could have been a false flag. We don't know. And they're not going to report on the actuality of it, at least not anytime soon. But yeah, this war is nowhere close to being done, and is what it is, whatever level of war is actually taking place. This is an interesting story. European Union issues U.S.-bound staff with burner phones over spying fears. European Commission officials heading to IMF and World Bank spring meetings advised to travel with basic devices. The Commission is issuing burner phones and basic laptops to some U.S.-bound staffs to avoid the risk of espionage, a measure traditionally reserved for trips to China. Commissioners and senior officials traveling to the IMF and World Bank spring meetings, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, essentially, they're worried about the U.S. getting into the Commission's systems. The treatment of the U.S. as a potential security risk highlights how relations have deteriorated since the return of Donald Trump as U.S. president in January. Trump has accused the EU of having been set up to screw the U.S. and announced 20% so-called reciprocal tariffs on the bloc's exports, which he later have for a 90-day period. The transatlantic alliance is over, an EU official said. So again, this is the story that because of how Trump is not willing to basically be screwed over by the people who call themselves our allies, and in reality, they're the enemy. They're part of the global regime, deep state establishment, whatever you want to call them. Because we're not willing to allow ourselves to be screwed over anymore, finally a president who's not participating in that, he's actually standing up to it and trying to end it, we're no longer allies. And you know what? They're right. We're not. Screw them. We don't need them. We never have. And we're done being bent over. Like, they're not our allies anymore. Trump is reshaping the entire global order with what he's doing here. Not just with the economic stuff, but with the security stuff, the peace deals, everything. And that's what we want. That's why he's elected. That's why they stole the election from him. Anyway, NVIDIA to manufacture American-made AI supercomputers in the U.S. for the first time. We kind of saw this coming a while ago. We've been talking about the CHIPS Act on the Power Hour for a long time. Ash is a big anti-CHIPS Act person. She is not a fan of the CHIPS Act, if I'm not mistaken. I'm probably misquoting her somewhat, but I believe I'm somewhat accurate. NVIDIA is working with its manufacturing partners to design and build factories that, for the first time, will produce NVIDIA AI supercomputers entirely in the U.S. Together with leading manufacturing partners, the company has commissioned more than 1 million square feet of manufacturing space to build and test NVIDIA Blackwell chips in Arizona and AI supercomputers in Texas. NVIDIA Blackwell chips have started production at TSMC's chip plants in Phoenix, Arizona. They're building supercomputer manufacturing plants in Texas, with Foxconn in Houston and with Wistron in Dallas. Mass production at both plants is expected to ramp up in the next 12 to 15 months. And yeah, this is kind of stuff we saw coming. The writing, when Trump was in office the first time, they issued a couple executive orders about manufacturing and basically how us not having semiconductors manufactured here was a national security threat. Not just the rare earth stuff, but the semiconductors. And so under Biden's term, it was carried out, all the stuff that Trump wanted done. They started building manufacturing plants, and now we're starting to see the implications of that. Ash says, I'm critical of the CHIPS Act because they built factories in Singapore and called them U.S. jobs, but you were repeating BB's summary of my position, not my actual position. Yeah, probably. I'm much more on your side if it's something between you and Burning Bright. I promise. But yeah, this is this stems from all the way back to Trump's first term and everything he said about chips, all the stuff that was created and I guess implemented under Biden, created by Trump, implemented under Biden, and this is the kind of a little bit of that switch theory we talk about. Yeah, solidarity, sister. All right, let's keep going. Oh, and here's what Trump said about it.
You scored another major investment win this morning. NVIDIA pledged to build its AI supercomputer, the first time ever, right here in the United States.
Thank you. That's a question I like. That's true.
What is your reaction to this announcement, sir, and how does this positively benefit Americans across America?
Well, it's one of the biggest announcements you'll ever hear because NVIDIA, as you know, controls that almost the entire sector, which is one of the most important sectors in the world between chips and semiconductors and everything else. And they're the biggest. And the other biggest we already have coming in and spending $300 billion, as you know, they announced 2 weeks ago. But NVIDIA is so highly respected. And this was an announcement that a lot of people, I knew it was going to happen, but not to the extent that it happened. It's big. And the reason they did it is because of the election on November 5th and because of a thing called tariffs, as I say, the most beautiful word in the dictionary. After love, God, relationship, the press actually hit me and said, tariff is the most beautiful word in the dictionary. What about family, love, God? I got hit even on that. You understand? I said, okay. So now I say it's my 5th most favorite word because they get you on anything. But no, that NVIDIA, it's one of the great companies of the world, modern, super modern companies, controls segments that nobody, sort of controls the world in a sense. And they're coming in here in the biggest way with hundreds of billions of dollars, not like millions of dollars, hundreds of billions of dollars. And I'm honored by it. And I want to thank Jensen and all of the people that we deal with. They're great people. They're brilliant people. And without tariffs, they wouldn't be doing it.
It's one of the side effects of tariffs that they don't like to admit, the left, or acknowledge all the investment that's coming here because of the tariffs. It's great. Yeah, hundreds of billions of dollars. Palantir signed a deal with NATO to supply them with AI-powered battle system, and their stock went up quite a bit. So military-industrial complex type move here, if you're asking me. But anyway, Palantir and NATO Communications and Information Agency finalized the acquisition to deploy Palantir's Maven Smart System into NATO's allied command operations, which will utilize artificial intelligence applications to bolster battle capabilities. Palantir shares jumped 9% during early market trading on Monday. Just what we need is more AI, especially when it comes to killing people. That just seems like a great idea. And maybe somebody should write a movie about like potential side effects, like negative things that could go wrong if you get AI too involved in like death and destruction. Because I don't think anybody's written movies or books about that before. Seems like it'd be a good topic. Mike Rogers is making a push for the Senate. He's got this whole ad here. I'm not going to play it, but I anticipate he will get an endorsement from Trump, but we shall see. This was kind of a weird story. This reminds me of the Pelosi's husband story with the hammer. You remember? The guy like showed up and the police opened the door. Still the funniest police cam video I think I've ever seen. They open the door like, hey, what's going on here, guys? And they're like holding hands and then all of a sudden just whacks him in the head with a hammer. Anyway, there was an arson at Governor Josh Shapiro's residence, and the guy planned to beat him. I'll read it. A man who authorities said scaled an iron security fence in the middle of the night, eluded police, and broke into the Pennsylvania governor's mansion where he set a fire, had planned to beat Governor Josh Shapiro with a hammer if he found him. The fire left significant damage and forced Shapiro and his family and guests to evacuate the building early Sunday. The man was later arrested, faces charges including attempted homicide, terrorism, aggravated arson, and aggravated assault. During a police interview, authorities said Cody Balmer told them after he was taken into custody that he would have beaten Shapiro with a small sledgehammer if he had found him. Shapiro said he and his wife and the 4 children, they just celebrated Passover, and they were woken up by state troopers at like 2 a.m. and they got out of the house. I think there's a video or something of the damage. Let's see if I can find it real quick. I mean, the violence is totally uncalled for in all situations. So obviously, even though I do not like Governor Shapiro, this stuff like this can't happen. Absolutely cannot happen. I hope this guy gets the book thrown at him. This is the damage from the house. I mean, this is pretty crazy. Thankfully, kids, family, everybody's safe. And this is what the guy looks like. Oh, seems like a real winner there. F Trump. It's him. Kind of nuts that happened. But anyway, let's keep going here. I thought this was interesting. I didn't even have time to read this. I just thought the title of the story was interesting. So full disclosure. But the Commerce Department is launching a Section 232 semiconductor probe. They're looking at more ways to tariff semiconductors. Again, kind of this focuses on the Asian countries, which is good. I mean, it's good for us because they have a big advantage in the semiconductor stuff, but it's also good that we're building our own here now very shortly. I already did this story. Trump fully fit for duty. This is what is going on in California? A first in the nation bill would let students live in cars. Progressive Democratic lawmaker is seeking a simple but jarring remedy of last resort for California's college students navigating the state's housing crisis. Let them sleep in cars. Are they saying that it wasn't legal before to sleep in your car? Is that a real thing? Like, how sovereign can we possibly be as a country or a state or whatever if you can't just like sleep in your car whenever you want? It's your car. It's your sleep. If you need it, you should be able to sleep in your. You know what? I have pulled over on the highway before when I was like so tired. Back in college, because I went to college a couple hours away, and like, early morning or whatever, driving home, you just get so tired you don't want to crash, so you just pull over and take a quick 20-minute nap. I've done it. Was that illegal? Like, why did they need a bill to allow this? Yoma63, John has a new baby. No, I do not. But my office is a ways away from my kids' room. I can typically hear them. Like, they'll just even come down to my office sometimes if I'm working and they wake up. But I do have that on normally in case, I don't know, they scream or yell or whatever, I need to get up there. But no, I do not have a new baby. This is an interesting one. Meta faces landmark antitrust trial over Instagram WhatsApp acquisitions. And this is going to blow your mind, maybe. Blew my mind. Meta Platforms is set to face an antitrust trial in Washington beginning Monday as the FTC seeks to dismantle what it alleges is an illegal social media monopoly built through the acquisitions of Instagram and WhatsApp. U.S. District Judge James Boasberg is overseeing the case, which could result in Meta being forced to divest from the two platforms. The same James Boasberg we've been talking about for all the Trump stuff. The same one. How is this guy on every single case? Doesn't make sense. The FTC, which brought the case in 2020 during Trump's first term, that's interesting, contends that Meta spent billions more than a decade ago to eliminate emerging threats to Facebook's dominance in social networking. The agency argues that these deals were aimed at neutralizing future competition rather than fostering innovation. The stakes for Meta are significant, as Instagram alone is estimated to generate nearly half the company's U.S. ad revenue. The FTC is seeking a breakup that could force Meta to sell both of them. The FTC contends that Meta still holds a monopoly over the platforms. Blah, blah, blah. Judge Boasberg, in a previous ruling, allowed the case to proceed, but acknowledged that the FTC faces a difficult task in proving its claims at trial. If the agency wins, it will need to clear a second legal hurdle to demonstrate that unwinding the deals would restore competition. Lots of interesting things with this. So one, this stuff started under Trump, and it was not thrown out under Biden. Like the Biden DOJ continued it, or the FTC, whatever, FTC and DOJ. They continued it. Why didn't they throw it out? That's weird. Number two, if you remember what Zuckerberg did at the very beginning, and maybe it was even before Trump got in there, I don't remember. But I remember doing that Liberty Den where we were going through Zuckerberg being on Joe Rogan, and like why do we need a redemption tour for this guy? Why are we giving him that redemption tour? If he really felt bad and guilty, or if he was a really good person, he wouldn't have allowed the censorship to happen in the first place, right? If he was a good guy, but that's not him. But now he's apologizing, blaming the Biden administration, all these things, sucking up to Trump, donating millions to his inauguration thing. This is not a good dude. But now this is being picked back up again. And with Judge Boasberg overseeing the case, I wonder if there's now been a creation of a conflict of interest based on all these other cases. And I wonder how that affects this. And I don't know if there's like a timing aspect. Ash, if you're in the chat, I don't know how that works. Like if he's already on a case and then later there's these other cases, does that create a conflict of interest for the previous case started in 2020? Because I can't imagine Judge Boasberg is going to rule in anything in favor of the Trump administration in any way. And so maybe this is maybe there's a path here to get a new judge. Stop reading so fast, hard to understand. You guys just need to listen faster. The whole point of the show is speed, the need for speed. But I mean, I could try to slow down. Ash says it could, but they'd have to show material conflict. I could show them some material conflict. Judge Boasberg is anti-Trump. Anyway, so something to keep an eye on. I'm curious to see how that all plays out. Obviously, I would love to see not only the FTC force him to sell both those platforms, I would love to see them actually implement some form of free speech, which we haven't seen yet. The FBI suspends analysts linked to Russia hoax, probe, Hunter Biden laptop review, and Mar-a-Lago raid. And this is Brian Outen. We've heard this name many times over the past few years. He was involved in preparing and reviewing FISA warrants targeting Carter Page, a former foreign policy advisor to the first Trump campaign. They relied in part on Steele dossier, a false document later discredited and linked to Hillary Clinton's circle, paid for by her, by the way. Outen's role came under scrutiny for his failure to properly vet the sources and information used to justify surveillance. What I anticipate to happen here is because of this. In Kash Patel's book, Government Gangsters, Outen was actually listed. And that's what he said. Outen's name appeared in Kash Patel's Government Gangsters, where he accused the FBI of working to hide and spin the Biden family corruption contained in the laptop. Patel noted that Outen tried to discredit any derogatory information about Hunter Biden by falsely claiming that none of it was true. Outen was listed in the book's appendix titled Members of the Executive Branch Deep State. And then in the book, the fact that Outen was not fired from the FBI and prosecuted for his part in the Russiagate conspiracy is a national embarrassment, Patel wrote. Outen might have a case if he sues on this, because Patel wrote about this previously. Does that make sense? Maybe he doesn't. I don't know. If they have just cause to fire him and they have proof of that, then maybe that's why it took so long for them to put him on leave compared to like anybody else. But this one, they could have a case because Kash wrote about it in his book. So we'll see. Oh, yeah. Ash says book club on Government Gangsters tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern, right here on Badlands Media. Make sure you guys check that out. It's a fun show, too. We have so many fun shows on this network. North Carolina Supreme Court orders thousands to verify ballot information in disputed election. This is from Friday, so might be a little older of a story, but I'm going to read through it anyway. They ruled that thousands of military and overseas voters must correct issues with their ballots within 30 days or risk disqualification. a decision that could alter the outcome of the state's only unresolved 2024 statewide election. It's crazy. In the days where our elections are the most secure they've ever been, the most trustworthy they've ever been, how is it that we still have an unresolved 2024 statewide election? Just does not make sense. The court also reversed a lower court ruling by ordering that roughly 60,000 ballots from voters who had missing registration information must be counted. I don't know if I agree with that. If you don't have the right registration information, why are they counting those ballots? But maybe, Ash, you follow this stuff. You probably know more than I do. In its ruling, the state Supreme Court wrote that mistakes made by negligent election officials in registering citizens who are otherwise eligible to vote do not justify throwing out those votes and ordered them counted. That's more interesting. Like if these people were, the election officials were intentionally putting wrong registration information for specific voters that they knew would vote for the conservative judge. I don't know. Total number of disputed ballots now exceeds the margin of Riggs' reported win, placing the final outcome of the race in doubt. Yes, Spetzel, of course. Ash knows more than I do. No argument here. Justice Department moves forward with Smartmatic bribery case. This is a case we discussed quite a bit on the Power Hours, a couple of years ago when it first came out, because this is a big story. It has to do with our elections. They said in federal court this week they will continue prosecuting 2 Smartmatic executives accused of bribing a foreign official despite Trump's directive halting enforcement of a key anti-corruption law. I don't remember Trump's directive with the anti-corruption law, but probably true. But this has to do with the Roger Pinate Martinez, Smartmatic's co-founder, and that Jorge Miguel Vasquez, who were indicted last year on charges of paying over $1 million in bribes to the head of the Filipino Commission on Elections between 2015 and 2017. If they do it there, do you think they do it here? They would never do it here. They would only do it in foreign countries. They would never try to control the outcome of elections in America. They would only do it in other countries. The alleged scheme was aimed at securing contracts for voting machines and related services during the Philippines 2016 election. You guys remember Dean Logan, LA County? Best friends with that Smartmatic guy. I did a whole article on it. Sounds awfully familiar to this situation. Went on trips together, hung out a lot. Somehow Smartmatic just happened to win the bid. Definitely they just had the best product. Had nothing to do with the friendship. Nothing to see here. He only blocked me and went private on Twitter because it was a coincidence. Nothing to do with the article. Anyway, the Justice Department's decision to continue the case came the same day Trump escalated efforts to punish officials connected to false claims about the security and integrity of the election, the day he targeted Chris Krebs. Trump also imposed sanctions on the law firm Susan. We already read all this last week. So, Senate confirmed Raisin Cain. Love this guy. He's a bad dude, but I mean that in a good way. Like a bad dude. You know what I mean? He's a good dude. Yeah. And I think that's all I got. True Social, there's a couple posts about 60 Minutes and how Trump does not like their show. Their show is bad juju. And that's to summer. That's a TLDR. And yeah, that is all I got. So if you guys wouldn't mind doing me a favor, hit that thumbs up. I greatly appreciate that. I did see a couple of rants come through. Maybe I have time to read through those. Maybe just a couple of them. Yeah. Abe Theory, wait, they're shooting monkeys back into space. LOL. Nice one. And the baby monitor question. Anarchy. Oh, I already answered all those. So we're good there. One quick announcement, though. I'm going to announce it here and then I'll post it on Twitter. So you guys are going to get the first breaking news about a new edition coming to Badlands Media in the very near future. We are going to have Shipwreck Show on Badlands coming this May. We'll have more details to come, but very excited to be adding her to the network. She does her regular shows as always. She's going to continue to be an independent creator, but she's going to be doing a separate new show on Badlands. So I'll have details on that soon. Probably after Gart will announce the details. So there you have it. Hit that thumbs up. You guys have a great rest of your day. What do we have going on right now? I always forget. Y Crumbs is on right now, and then Alphas Make Sandwiches is on at 3 p.m. Eastern. We have Book of Trump later. We have Baseless Conspiracies tonight. We're going to have BX on X back again to discuss more. There's been some pretty crazy developments, so we'll do that. And anyway, you guys have a great rest of your day. I will see you tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern, and tonight, Baseless Conspiracies.
real good.
Why they stopping me? Stopping me.